Hello students and welcome to video 3 in the Business Management IA series, and in this video we're going to look in a bit more detail about how you can choose your supporting document. So just a quick review. Video 1 was a brief introduction to the IA. Video 2 was some guidelines on how to choose your research question. Now we're going to look at how to choose your supporting documents for your IA, and this is very important, as we'll see. So some general guidelines. You need to choose 3 to 5 supporting documents. Well, why 3 to 5? Well, that's what the IB says you have to do. It's in the guide, and you get assessed. There's a number of marks we'll see available in a minute. So you can choose a minimum of 3 and a maximum of 5. And in general, I'm going to say 5 will give you more to work with. So if you can, you want to get 5, but you might not always be able to find 5 relevant ones. The supporting documents should be in-depth and provide a range of views and opinions. So what does in-depth mean? Well, I think you're looking at probably at least a page of A4. So when you take the supporting document and put it onto a Google Doc or whatever, it should be at least a page of A4. That doesn't guarantee that it's going to be in depth. So you might want to be thinking 2 pages of A4, but it really depends on what's in the article. But it needs to be enough about it that it's actually a good document, and a range of views and opinions. So you don't want to take it all from the same website. You want to go from a variety of different places, and I'll show you some examples in a minute. And also you want to get a differing opinions. So if you're looking at whether it was a good idea for company X to buy company Y, then maybe one article is about why it's a good idea, and then maybe you find another article about why it's not a good idea. And so you get different opinions on the same thing going forwards. And that means that you've got more to work with when you write your IA. Documents can be primary or secondary or both. Next slide, we're going to look at that in a bit more detail. And this is a really important one. Within 3 years of the date of submission of the IA. So let's say, for example, your IB exams are in May 2025. Then the IA is likely to be submitted in April 2025. So therefore, the supporting documents should be no older than May 2022 because of the 3-year rule. So all documents need to be newer than May 2022. That's really important. And if one of your documents is older than that, then you lose a load of marks, as we'll see. One document can be an audio or a video file, but you need to transcribe it. To transcribe it means you need to write out exactly what is said in that document. And you can use additional sources beyond the 5 supporting documents, but the focus should be on the 5 supporting documents. And so there shouldn't be too many of those, really. And textbooks do not count as supporting documents, but still should be cited in the IA itself. So let's look at some secondary sources and primary sources. So what are secondary sources for supporting documents? Well, secondary sources just means it's being done by someone else and we're just using their work. So the most common example are news articles. So BBC, CNN, New York Times, etc. And this will probably be online news articles. So that's one source, and these are really good. These are really, really good to use. Next up, extracts from the company website. So if you're doing IKEA, for example, then you can go to their website and you can see things like their mission statement. They're probably going to do press releases where they talk about what's happening. They might have policies about how they treat their staff and what they pay their staff, etc. So this is a really, really good one to use. And it also gives you a different opinion because news articles will be written by someone outside the organization, and extracts from the company website will be written from people within the organization. So you're going to get a different set of opinions there. Another one really, really good is the annual report. So if the company is publicly held, then every year they have to produce an annual report. And this is like over 100 pages normally. And it contains things like at the beginning, there'll be some sort of letter from the CEO where they talk about the year they've had and what's going on and what their targets for the future. And there'll also be lots of finances such as the profit and loss, balance sheets, etc., etc. So if your business is publicly held, which I do think is generally a good idea, then this would be definitely one that I would want to be using, assuming you can find things relevant. If you can't find anything relevant in there, then maybe it's not so good. Academic journal articles, government publications, market research reports, etc., etc. Primary sources are ones you collect yourself. So surveys, maybe you survey employees and customers. You could do interviews or focus groups with owners, managers, or anyone who's relevant, any relevant stakeholder for the business. You could stand outside the shop if it's a shop and count the number of people passing during a period of time. This is called a footfall count. Or you could do observations where you could sit in the shop and just watch what happens. For example, you could count how long customers stay for. Obviously, with these, you need the permission of the company. So if you're doing a big publicly held company, then these, might not be relevant. And overall, just using secondary research is absolutely fine. And I would say the vast majority of IAs tend to just use secondary research. Only use primary research if it would add value to your IA. And you also need to know somebody within the company so you can actually go and collect that primary research. So I would expect that most IAs will be just secondary research. If the company is not publicly held, it might be difficult to get some company information. And that's why I said earlier on that ideally you're choosing a business which is publicly held, and then you can get the annual report and things like that. But it's still possible to do. If it's privately held or as a sole trader or a partnership, it's still possible to collect the sources, but it might be a bit more challenging. So you'll need to see how that goes. So here's some examples of how we use the supporting documents. So you're going to have to include the supporting documents in the IA. More details about that coming later. So this is one based on the PlayStation 5 from I forget what the title of the IA was, but you can see you want to label the supporting documents. So these will go into the appendix. So this is Appendix 3, supporting document 3. So this is the third supporting document. And you need to copy and paste or take a screenshot of the article and put it into the actual IA document or a separate document, depending on how you submit it. And so what you do is you take the article and then you need to highlight the key parts. And so what does that mean? That means that you're highlighting the parts that you're going to use in the IA. So this student here has highlighted this paragraph here and this paragraph here. Now, this is really important because firstly, it tells you what you're going to be using in your IA. It also communicates with the reader that these are the parts of the supporting document that I'm going to be using, because you can't really expect a reader to read all of those supporting documents. It's going to be thousands of words. So this is how you want to present it. Appendix 3, supporting document 3. Here's the article, and then you're going to highlight the key parts. Another thing to consider is that supporting documents don't need to be in the language that you're going to be submitted. So let's say you're going to be submitting your IA in English, then the supporting documents don't have to be in English. For example, this one's in Korean, and you can see that, again, you need to highlight the key parts. So they're using this paragraph here, and they're using this paragraph here. But what you do need to do is you need to translate it. So you can see that the original article is the highlighted part in Korean, and then underneath they've got the bit in English here. And that's the bit that you're going to use. So you must translate it into English or whatever document, or sorry, whatever language that you're going to be submitting your IA in. Finally, each document should be no longer than 5 A4 pages. In the IA guide, this is a suggestion, although it's a very strong suggestion, so I think it's a good rule to follow. So the reason for that is then you don't have pages and pages and pages, and the IA becomes really long, and people don't know which part you're using. So if you do have a very, very long document, then you just want to choose 5 pages maximum that you're using from it. So this is an example from the Korean one we looked at, Hyundai. They're using the annual report, and they were using different parts of it. So they took 5 different pages from the annual report and just put them one after another in the IA. So this was this is part of the balance sheet, and again they highlighted the key parts. The balance sheet was actually in English in the annual report, and then they had different parts of it afterwards. So you don't want to put the whole annual report in, just to say 5 key pages in there. So here's just a quick example. So this question is from an IA such as, to what extent will IKEA's strategy to open more urban stores increase market share in Germany? I've used this as an example before in previous videos. So in this situation, the students collected 5 documents, which is good. They're all in depth. we're assuming they're all in depth. I mean, I don't actually have the articles here, but you can see that all of the articles actually say something very similar. So they all talk, they're all basically just describing IKEA's strategy of opening new urban stores. And I just wrote these up myself. But this is something that I sometimes, as a teacher, I get submitted. It's just 5 documents. Yes, they're all in depth, but there's no range of opinions because they're all saying the same thing and they're all news articles. So if I've shown a good example, here we've got 2 news articles, supporting document 1 and 5. So supporting document 1 discusses IKEA's new policy. So that's a good one to have. This provides background to what IKEA is choosing to do. And then number 5 is another news article, but this one's an opinion piece, and it's about why IKEA's urban stores are destined to fail. And the reason why this is good is because this is going to provide a range of opinions, because a lot of the other documents, as we'll see, are going to be about why these urban stores are a really good idea and it's going to help IKEA. But by having a document that talks about why it's going to fail, it then provides that different opinion. So number 2 is from the IKEA website. So this is from IKEA themselves. Mission statements and a press release detailing the new urban stores and how it fits into the long-term objective. So you can see that this is in contrast to number 5 already. We use the annual report. So we look at the letter from the CEO and the finances, and then some sort of market research report, how consumer shopping trends are changing in the German furniture market and how the urban stores fit into that. So you can see that we have our documents from 4 different places. We have a news article, the IKEA website, annual report, and an independent market research report. And we have differing opinions in here. So these are all in depth. They also provide a range of opinions, and also they're not from all the same source. So this would be a good example of a good one. Right, video's getting a bit long. So final thoughts, the documents are worth 4 marks out of 25. So spend time on this, spending time carefully choosing which documents, and you want to get that range of opinion. Choose 5 if you can. If you can't find 5, then don't use 5, but ideally choose 5 because then you have more to talk about in your IA. Keep a document with URLs and MLA citations so you don't lose the documents. And like I said earlier, don't just choose 5 news articles. Have a maximum of 3, ideally 2 news articles, and then use an annual report because that's got loads of information in there. And again, you can use other sources, but limit how much you use them. Most of the IA needs to be about those 5 supporting documents. Okay, that's that video done. I'll see you next time.